Hello and welcome to The Big Fight, a show that is young at 23, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Sanket. Right here on this program, we've actually lost the count on the number of shows we have done on the growing hate in this country. Hate for profit, hate for votes, hate for validation, hate TV anchors, and the hate goes on. This is not just a group of people, rambling on and on. Because the Supreme Court, the highest court in the country, has shared this concern. And actually a big thank you to the judges for acknowledging that something somewhere has seriously gone wrong in the society and needs fixing. So far, the Supreme Court was always seen to be making sharp observations, but never found mention in the order. At least that's what a lot of lawyers had started saying and asking, whether it even amounts to something or not, because you're observing, but it's not actually finding a mention in your orders and thus cannot be implemented. At best, it can be passed off as your opinion, the Lordship's opinion. But now the Supreme Court has called for suo motu action on hate by the police. And if that is not done, it will be considered a contempt of court. The nation could not have asked for a better Deepavali present from the courts. Will this at least start the process of ending hate in this country? The Supreme Court says, act yourself or face contempt proceedings. This is the top court's toughest message to governments on hate speeches. Will we now see an end to hate? Let's at least hope so. I would first like to introduce our first guest, Justice S.N. Dhingra, retired judge of the Delhi High Court, who is going to join us in just a short moment from now. Let's quickly put on screen Adil Singh Boparai of the Congress Party, as well as Yashovardhan Azad, former IPS officer. Let's begin with you, Adil Singh Boparai. What are your views?
Well, Sanketji, today hate and bigotry enjoy state patronage. And I think it's time that we don't beat about the bush. This is the policy of the ruling dispensation and more particularly the ruling party. The rabble-rousers we see every day on social media, on television are merely foot soldiers. They are foot soldiers of this pernicious ideology. And the message is very clear. The more rabid you are, the faster you will grow. I think that's the message. That is why you see that the police action is lethargic, or there is complete lethargy shown by the police even to register FIRs under the appropriate sections. What you saw in Delhi is just abhorrent. You had a member of parliament of the ruling party making a highly inflammatory and a provocative speech. What action has the police taken?
So far.
And the Delhi police comes under the MHA. So what message are you sending? The message which you're sending is that you continue with your polarization, you continue with spewing hate, you continue with dividing the society, because that reaps us electoral dividends. You must understand why this is happening. This is happening because the BJP is reaping electoral dividends using hate and bigotry as an electoral strategy. And I humbly urge the Prime Minister of this country, and I don't say this as a spokesperson of the Congress Party, I say this today as a citizen of this country. I urge him to take out time from his photo ops and to address the issue of rising hatred.
Here is what I'll do.
Rising social divisiveness.
Okay. Aashutoshsrivastava as well as Yashovardhan Azad are also with us. Yashovardhan ji, before you answer this question, for the benefit of all our viewers, when we say let's put an end to hate speeches, we mean all hate speeches. All. Whether it is being made by the BJP leaders or opposition leaders or people affiliated to these political parties or generally. So we are against the hate speech by Pravesh Verma, MP of the BJP, Yate Narsinganand, Suresh Chawanke, because remember Supreme Court's very tough observations against hate TV anchors, or whether it is Maulana Tauqir Raza, who says, जिस दिन मेरा नौजवान मेरे कंट्रोल से बाहर आ गया तो तुम्हें हिंदुस्तान में कहीं पनाह नहीं मिलेगी. And also Shaukat Ali, who is the president of AIMIM in Uttar Pradesh. So just want to put this out there, that when we say end to hate, we mean all people spreading hate. Because I don't think that it is just people of one particular community spreading hate, Mr. Azad. It's a problem that spreads across ecosystems, across political parties.
I'm so glad, Sanket, that you have pointed out how the hot-headed elements from both sides are trying to instigate hate amidst various communities, not only Hindus and Muslims, also Christians and other communities.
Yeah.
Let me start by saying that I am a little disappointed with the Supreme Court. You know, in 2007, if you remember, there was the Tahseen Poonawalla case, in which the Supreme Court had said that it should be a zero tolerance for hate crimes. Again, in Amish Devgan case in 2020, they said, you know, every state should form an SIT. And this SIT should also prevent crimes by catching those elements who are spouting these kind of hate speeches. On July 21, just a couple of 2 months earlier, you know what the Supreme Court had said on Madni's writ petition? And Madni had said that, you know, all the hate speeches against prophets, etc., should be immediately acted upon by the state by registering cases. Now, Supreme Court had told the petitioner that you tell the states, list out these cases, and the states in return will give us that what action has been done in various cases. So I'm happy today, in a way, that Supreme Court has said that action should be taken. The question is, why isn't action being taken? The action is being taken because the politicians cannot own any moral high ground, whether of this side or the other side. If you see the action which is premeditated, if it's a BJP ruled state, is the action which is oriented against a particular community, and if it is the other state, then the action is more premeditated towards the other community and saving one community for whatever vote reasons. A secular state has to be tough. A secular state can't afford to be easy, that, you know, anybody can practice any kind of religiosity, and therefore I think every state has failed to curb the hate speeches. And now, after this Supreme Court judgment, I do hope that the states learn and behave, otherwise they will be called for contempt.
No, absolutely. Suo motu action, just in case anyone says, because, you know, there is this immediate habit, Professor Govardhan Das, there is this immediate habit. Professor Govardhan Das, can we please have him on the screen, please? Yes, leader of the BJP. Professor Das, you see, the thing is that there is this habit to say that there was no complainant in this case, nobody has said anything, and we see those cases lingering on, right? And by the way, because you've just joined, I would like to repeat, because I know exactly, last time we had a discussion on hate speech and you said what you did. So here is me repeating all and calling out all cases of hate speech, whether it is Rajendra Pal Gautam of the Aam Aadmi Party, Pravesh Verma of the BJP, Yati Narsinganand, who claims to be or pretends to be a Dharm Guru, Suresh Chawanke, who pretends to be a TV anchor, Maulana Tawqir Raza, who claims to be a Dharm Guru, and Shaukat Ali, who claims to be a politician, the president of the AIMIM in Uttar Pradesh. They must all face charges of delivering hate speech. And if they fail to do so, the Supreme Court says that the state governments will be in contempt. Professor Das.
Yes, good evening, Sanket, and good evening, my fellow panelists. I'm really happy today, and I really heartily welcome what Supreme Court says. I think this is the time. It is really, it was indeed needed. So I think what last time you were talking about, that the BJP leaders, the Congress spokesperson, he was talking about the BJP, BJP MP was talking about hate speeches. Now I understand, if the Supreme Court is now very impartial, I would like to see that those who says the 15 minute de do sare Hindu ko khatam kar dunga, those who says the kya kehta hai ye 20 crore 80 crore ke upar bhari parega, those who vandalize the ye Durga Murti, Durga idol, तो उन लोगों को भी ये Supreme Court equally treat करेगा. Then those who are preventing Saraswati Puja, immersion of Saraswati idols, उन लोगों को भी equally treat करेगा. I'm really happy today, Sanket. I think this is now the things are going in the right direction.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
this is-
Any
it has to be,
and every
right?
hate. My
Yes.
point is this whole brand
Yes.
of politics that
and
involves
also,
propagating hate.
When police, Supreme Court says, I think this is the high time Supreme Court also look into the matter why the 5 lakh Hindu is still out of Kashmir. So that also probably in the range of that hatred. And also, I'm talking about those kind of things that Supreme Court will take care of it. I think this is a very good time. I'm enjoying, and I'm really happy that Supreme Court
Sure.
has given
Okay. PKD
such
Nambe,
kind
as a
of things.
political analyst, is now also with us. So is Aashutoshsrivastava, advocate of the Supreme Court, and we also have Colin Gonzalez, senior lawyer in the Supreme Court. Mr. Gonzalez, let me start by asking you this question. You see, legally speaking, would you be able to explain to the layman today what the Supreme Court has said? Does this mean that post this evening or post today, any hate speech the police must take suo motu cognizance, and if they fail to do so, they will be in contempt of the Supreme Court?
See, it's a happy day that the Supreme Court said what it said. But it is just not good enough.
Why?
Because it has always been the law that when a policeman sees hate speech on television or reported in newspapers, the officer must take that TV video of that newspaper and register an FIR. It's happening in front of his eyes. But it's impossible in this country, notwithstanding this sort of general order of the Supreme Court, to take a minister of the central government, as in the Delhi riots, member of parliament, member of Rajya Sabha, as in the Delhi riots. It's impossible unless judges show real leadership, not generalities. Now take the Delhi riots case. It came before Justice Muralidhar. Justice Muralidhar saw the videos. In 15 minutes, he says, this is a hate crime, register an FIR. Government counsel said, give me time till tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. By then, I'll take instructions and come back whether I'll register an FIR or not. This is 3 years ago. In that night, Justice Muralidhar was removed from the case and sent to Orissa. And now there was talk of him being sent to Tamil Nadu and so on. Poor man, he suffered only because he decided to take a prominent politician to task and get an FIR registered against him for clear-cut hate speech, Goli Maro Salo, on national television. So, it's a very difficult time and judges are scared of the central government power. It's okay to give a general order, but I'm hoping now the Supreme Court will garner courage to order prosecution and FIR registration against leaders of the central government, because they are the main culprits, who are engaging in hate speech day in and day out. Will it happen? That's the question.
Okay, yeah, that's the all-important question. Ashutosh is a political analyst, is also with us. Ashutosh, what is your view? As a political analyst, what do you feel? Mr. Srivastava, I'm going to come back to you. This is Ashutosh, the journalist, and then I come to you, if you allow me. Yeah.
Sanket, I think it is too late and it is too little. Supreme Court, the might of the Supreme Court has been challenged earlier also. Supreme Court has also earlier made such comments and statements. But now this is the time to show the results. Now the action should follow. These statements and the observation will not make any difference. If Supreme Court, whatever order it has given today, if it has to be followed by tomorrow morning, Paresh Verma should be arrested. But will it happen? I keep my fingers crossed. I do not know what will happen, because this is something which is happening by design, and this is by design for the simple reason, because of the ideological reason and because of the electoral reason both. So if the hate speeches against a particular community stops immediately, then where will the political dividend come from? So that's a political side of this entire story and the ideological side of the entire story. But hate speech per se from either Muslim community or Hindu community or the Christian community or the Sikh community should be stopped. And whosoever is making such comments, immediate action should be taken against them. It's because the actions are not taken. It's because the agencies are sleeping. It is because the agencies are discriminatory by nature. So hate speech is rising every day. But can you imagine a member of parliament with 2 terms is openly saying boycott Muslims? A so-called saint or whatever you want to call him, he's openly given a call for the genocide. And agencies are not working.
Correct.
Supreme Court has to intervene. And after the Supreme Court's intervention, he gets a bail very, very easily. And again, he's free. He's roaming free and still making those hate speeches. But no action is being taken.
Correct.
So my submission is very simple. If a Muslim is making a hate speech, action should follow. If a Hindu leader is making a speech, action should follow.
Anyone.
But
Action must follow.
somebody who is a member of parliament holding a constitutional position.
Okay, Ashutosh Srivastava, I get the point that you're making. Mr. Srivastava, so according to Ashutosh, the political analyst and senior journalist, he says that because now the Supreme Court has said what it has, the Delhi police will be judged and will be in contempt if it does not take action against Parvesh Verma.
See, the Supreme Court has very well clarified today, as we know that the law and order of a state comes, the police comes under the state list, and it has given clear directions to the chief of the police officials of each and every state in a way that you have to take actions against those who are making hate speeches, and the basic democracy of the country and the secularism of the country has to be maintained, has to be balanced. Each and every individual belonging to any of the religions, if making any such hate speech against any other religion, should be taken into task.
No. See, the question was very specific by Ashutosh, the journalist, and I'm making this distinction because we've got 2 Ashutoshes. The point that he was making was very simply this, that in one case or one set of hate speeches, there is greater alacrity, and then in another set of hate speeches, you see, the rule book or process, essentially the administration hiding behind a process or just going slow.
Yes, this is what has to be, improved. This is what the Supreme Court has clarified. And the suo moto action should be taken by the police officials if they find anything which is happening, which is contrary to the law, and if there is any such hate speeches being made. I think this is a very much welcoming order. However, the laws already existed previously also.
Correct.
It is only that
so in effect what the Supreme Court has done is just reiterated
the confidence of the police officials will have some kind of a boost, and they will not under any fear to take whatever actions are required to be taken.
Can that necessarily happen, Mr. Azad? Mr. Azad?
See, this is the point I was coming at, that Supreme Court has heard the Tahsin Poonawalla case, Amish Devgan case. On July 21st, it gave the same year. Under Article 142, the Supreme Court can ensure that a complete justice can be done if it puts a few, a monitoring committee like eminent lawyers like, Colin Gonsalves and some other people and ordinary folks like me to see that whether in the next 3 months all such cases which Ashutosh has referred to against Parvesh Verma and all the others people, they are actually, an FIR is registered and it is reported to the Supreme Court. The question is, unless action is taken, these words are not enough. I have said since 2017 the Supreme Court has said that there should be zero tolerance against these hate speeches. Now on October 9, on Prophet Muhammad's birthday, there were processions all across in which Sar Tan Se Juda slogans were raised. They were raised in Azamgarh, they were raised in Amethi, they were raised in Amravati, they were raised in all the places.
Yeah, very little
now, the
action.
question is, somebody has to put an end to it. There has to be a very tough action, and only the monitoring of the Supreme Court decision can be done if there are people watching it and a constant monitoring is done.
Sure. PKD Nambiar, I want to bring you in now. And before, because I knew exactly what you and Professor Das will say, that's why I have this whole list. And before you reply, I would like to read out this list. So whether it is Mr. Pravesh Verma for saying इन लोगों से कोई सामान नहीं खरीदो, पैसा मिलना बंद हो जाएगा, तो ये समुदाय अपने आप लाइन पर आ जाएंगे. और whether it is Yati Narsinganand who says मुसलमानों के खिलाफ आधुनिक हथियारों की जरूरत, शस्त्रमेव जयते. और सुरेश चौहान के हेट एंकर हु सेज देश को हिंदू राष्ट्र बनाने के लिए लड़ेंगे और मरेंगे और जरूरत पड़ी तो मारेंगे भी. एंड नाउ मौलाना तौकीर रजा हु सेज तुम्हें हिंदुस्तान में कहीं पनाह नहीं मिलेगी अगर नौजवान मेरे कंट्रोल से बाहर चला गया. एंड शौकत अली, ही इज द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ MIM उत्तर प्रदेश, हु सेज मुसलमानों ने 832 ईयर्स दे रूल्ड. हिंदू हमारे सामने हाथ जोड़कर भी हुजूरी करते थे, वो अगर मुस्लिम का गुस्सा वाला चेहरा देखेंगे तो डर जाएंगे. All of these things are hate speeches, and according to the Supreme Court, in all these cases, there should be suo motu action by the cops, failing which these cops will be in contempt of the court. Do you welcome this or not?
Before I talk about that, I wanted to give another dimension, because today everybody is on a different tone altogether, but I thought like I'll put my perspective in a different way.
Yep.
Over the last 1 decade or so, if you really look at from the global perspective, not only from the Indian perspective, there has been an attempt to build a narrative of Islamophobia which has failed all across the world. It is not only in India, across the world. Hate speech is also a new trick in a way to sell this old wine of Islamophobia in a new bottle. So this is my personal view. Now coming to getting into the court's view of today, what happened, hate speech is not defined by the Indian Parliament yet. Of course, there can be, you can call it like an inflammatory speech, you can call whatever way you want it to. So far, there is no law which defines hate speech which is enacted by the Parliament, wherein in our country, in a democracy, it is done by the Parliament. So as long as that is not done, I am of my opinion, the court, even the Supreme Court, is getting into an uncharted waters, which is maybe, for an example, Sanket tomorrow gets up and say that the religious prayer of some groups is a hate speech because it says that they only are advocating only one God, their God is the only true God, and whereas I am a believer, Sanket believes only in one God, I believe in Hanuman,
but Mr. Nambiar, this is slightly hypothetical, no?
No, it is not.
What you are arguing, you are saying for this reason there should not be any sakti, there should not be any action, nothing should happen, because possibly in some state it may be misused.
Can I ask you something? I'm not talking, in your shows in multiple times, I said that whether it is, you call it like hate speech, I don't call it like all these talks, maybe some of them may be hate speech, truly hate speech. Some of them would be remarks which may have been interpreted by the different people as a hate speech. Some people, for an example, I don't know, I'm not a spokesperson for Pravesh Verma in anyhow, but he is clarified that I have never uttered the word Islam or a Muslim, or I have never said that. I have never used that word. So will it fall under the hate speech or
well,
not?
I don't know. I mean, then this is such a loophole which the politician has discovered.
One second. Then the same way you said that Sudarshan TV News chief editor Suresh Chauhan he is a hate anchor. That's the dot you place.
Of course he is. Do you have a doubt?
No, can I? Now he says, and in the Delhi police also has very clearly said that he has narrated this old pledge which was done by Shivaji Maharaj maybe in 1500 or whatever years back. So if that is the case, Rajendra Gautam, which was the cabinet minister who has been gone, but whereas he when enacted or recreated what in 1956 or so the great Ambedkar ji, so that is not hate speech. We don't want it to celebrate that. Whereas if the Shivaji Maharaj pledge, Suresh Chavan ke pledge, we call him as a hate anchor. Why don't we say that Rajendra Pal Gautam or the former minister is also a hate minister? So we have a problem. I believe that the court needs to work on it. But
What does the court need to do? I've got lawyers. We've got Colin Gonzalez.
Let the lawyers speak. So I am only saying
we are fortunate to have them. They'll decode this for us.
Is there a law right now available which defines hate speech? I believe no.
Colin Gonzalez, how would you respond to this?
No, one more second.
The definition of hate speech.
Well, Sanket, I'll just one more add.
Okay,
Then
Mr.
the second part is that if the hate is something like a remark which somebody does it on a group of people or a group of or a different community, if that is the case, what Ambedkar said about the Islam before he was joining to the Buddha, he was so if that is hate speech, so I think we need to have some more clarification on it. And the hate.
Okay, Colin Gonzalez. Colin Gonzalez.
Colin,
I think we've got the drift of what you want to say. Colin Gonzalez, I think the point that Mr. PKT Nambiar is saying is, how do you define hate? What is the definition of hate? Because
hate speech is found. Hate speech is found in the IPC again and again. Anyone who by words or by action creates enmity between people on the basis of religion, caste, etc., on the basis of religion, has committed a crime for which that person will be punished.
That is called as inflammatory speeches, sir. That is called as inflammatory speech. And secondly, in the law,
one by one, Mr. Nambiar,
on the basis of religion.
Mr. Nambiar, one by one.
I don't see why Mr. Nambiar should have any difficulty in understanding.
He's saying that that is an inflammatory speech, not a hate speech. That's the distinction he's trying to make.
There's no distinction. A hate speech
definitely there is a distinction, sir. You said the IPC
speech. A hate speech by its very nature is an inflammatory speech.
Yeah.
You want to create enmity between people of different religions. So you engage in inflammatory speech. There's no difference.
Okay.
So whatever. So can I ask a counter question? Let me. I'm not a lawyer, so let me accept whatever.
You don't need to be a lawyer, sir, to understand simple English.
No, I'm only saying, sir, with respect to you, I'm only saying that what Mr. Our great Ambedkar ji said about a particular religion, was it hate?
I don't know what you're talking about, but I know what Anurag Thakur said.
So why this is where my problem. Now you got it. Now this is where I wanted to take you, sir.
Why should I go to Ambedkar and what you said about something?
Sir, this is precise.
Why go back like that?
No, one more. Colin Gonzalez. One more. See, when with high level of rhetoric, what happens is that one more. I have understood what Mr. Nambiar is trying to say. Colin Gonzalez, he's saying that suppose if I am quoting someone as saying something which was said in the past, and if that is construed as inflammatory or hate speech, then am I guilty of quoting someone?
The answer is simple. You might be in an academic session and you'll discuss. But if you use that speech with the intention of creating enmity between people on the basis of religion, it becomes hate speech.
Okay.
That politician
No, one more. Mr. Nambiar, let me move on also.
One counter question.
You can have a private Q&A with Colin Gonzalez. I have limited time. Professor Das.
It's in the interest of the viewer.
Professor Das, one more.
The word kafir.
You must have been a very curious
kid. Is the word kafir is hate? Is the word kafir is hate? My question is simple. Is the word kafir is hate? It has killed, this particular word has killed millions of people across the globe. And all those people who went to the school have learned a little bit of history, do understand this particular word alone has done it. What all I am saying is, if this is all our hate speeches, let the Supreme Court should also
Okay, Adil Singh Boparai, please. Adil, the point that was being made was to define hate correctly. Colin Gonzalez says that the definition is right there. It is right
Mr.
there in the
Nambiar
law.
is raising, Sanket, Mr. Nambiar is raising something very frivolous. I'm not going to waste national prime time of NDTV responding to his silly questions, though he's a very dear friend of mine. But coming to the issue at hand, we welcome the order of the Supreme Court. Let me be very clear. But at the same time, and I say this with a certain degree of responsibility, you are not going to see anything change on the ground.
Why?
I repeat, you are not going to see anything change on the ground.
Why?
The reason is that the BJP has developed hate politics and hate speech as an electoral strategy. This is the elephant in the room. The time for generalities is over.
But now the court says if you don't take action, that'll amount to contempt.
Well, I will be the first person who will welcome contempt, against all these erring politicians. But I think if we need a solution, and let's discuss solutions today. I think the courts need to start invoking contempt jurisdiction and 142 and start suspending officers. And just don't go after officers, lower rank officers. Start suspending ACPs, DCPs and joint CPs. In fact, a similar direction was even given in the Tehseen Purawala judgment that you initiate departmental proceedings against erring officers who don't take police action.
Sure.
But the problem today, Sanket, is, and I think we must, the former IPS officer did delve into it. The problem is there is one thing to have judgments and the latter is enforcement of those judgments or execution of those judgments.
Correct.
Today the police is under executive BJP pressure. The likes of the BJP leaders and the likes of Mr. Owaisi are two sides of the same coin. They provide oxygen to each other. It helps the pot, they keep the pot simmering for their politics.
Okay.
And I think
one by one.
Sanket, I would going to say
Ashutosh, Mr. Razai, I'm going to come to you. Professor Das now. Professor Das, I want to ask you. You see, just a short while ago, Mr. Gonzalez said that the intention.
Let me respond and you can ask.
One more, please. My question, please. He says that the intention, if the intention is to spread hate, then there is a problem. Now, in the case of Parvesh Verma, I am being told that he never named a community. So when he says, अगर समुदाय विशेष का दिमाग ठीक करना है तो उनका बहिष्कार कर दो, इन लोगों से कोई सामान मत खरीदो, पैसा मिलना बंद हो जाएगा तो समुदाय अपने आप लाइन पर आ जाएगा. Which समुदाय? Now you see the intention over here is very clear. Which samuday?
Sanket, let me one by one. Let me make 2 points. I was listening to Ashutosh and the Congress spokesperson. They actually conveniently they did not mention 1984 Delhi riot. That's because that was not a hate speech. That was a hateful act, right? So they forgot to mention. Second thing is that they are not mentioning wherever the Durga idol is being vandalized, that they are not the hate speech, right?
Take action. Take action. Let the action be uniform. Let me repeat, the action should be uniform. Whoever is making hate speech,
very good, Mr. Spokesperson.
Now
very
stop
good.
Whataboutery and come to the issue at hand.
No.
Stop whataboutery.
1984.
This is known as whataboutery in English.
1984 act was barbarian, right?
Whataboutery.
1984 act
You
was
got evidence.
barbarian, right?
You got evidence, lock them up. You got evidence, lock them up.
Sanket, can I come in?
Evidence, lock them up.
Can you?
Lock them up if you
The
got evidence.
1984, it was barbarian act, right?
Any person
So
against whom you have evidence.
did Congress
In every
government
place,
has
please.
taken any action? Where are those culprits?
This is whataboutery.
Where are they?
We are beyond whataboutery.
Yeah.
Any person who makes hate speech, arrest him. Whether he's a BJP leader, whether he's a Congress leader, whether he's an SP leader, whether he's Mr. Owaisi's party. Take action.
You keep
Okay,
on saying
Gordon Das, now I think you've made your point. You have made your point. Let me please ask you this question. My question, I'm repeating it once again. Colin Gonzalez said that if the intention is to spread hate or spread enmity, then that is hate speech. In the case of Parvesh Verma, he said samuday, which means community. He referred to a community, did not mention Muslim. But the intention was very clear. So does this fall in the ambit of the law? Will this amount to hate speech or not? I think it does.
Sanket, Sanket,
Or is
very
this
good.
some clever
What-
workaround that I will not take the name
No,
of
no,
the
no,
community
Sanket,
and thus I can
Sanket.
say whatever, it will not amount to hate
Sanket,
speech?
Sanket, can you talk about the Mr. Imran Masood? Can you talk about
Of course.
Take
Mr.
action
Mukarram
against
Khan?
Imran Masood then. Take action. Who's
So
stopping
unless
you?
Professor
Sanket,
Das,
stopping you.
this
Sanket,
long list I have
stopping
read.
you from
Das
taking
always
action.
cherry picking.
Again, you're
That's
doing
not
the
the
same
problem.
thing.
Examples.
That
Take
is the
action.
problem.
You've been
Don't
elected for
cherry
a
pick.
purpose.
Take action against everyone.
Take
No, no, no.
action.
I'm
Who's stopping
asking
you?
Sanket.
Who's
No,
in
no, no.
power in
I'm
Uttar
asking
Pradesh?
Sanket.
Who is in
Wha-
power in Uttar Pradesh? Who is in power
Why
in
you are
Uttar Pradesh?
blabbering?
Take action. Arrest him.
Mister, I'm asking
Arrest him.
Sanket.
Arrest
Mister, I'm
him.
asking Sanket.
Okay, Professor
Let-
Das,
let-
very quickly, I have very
let-
limited
let-
time.
not arrest
We are
him.
not
You will
going to
arrest
outshout
Sanket
one another.
respond.
One moment,
Let- will not
please.
arrest
Sanket
him.
respond.
Let
Why
us
are you
stop this. I have to
Where-
move on.
why are you
Sanket
jumping?
Very
will not
quickly,
arrest him.
Professor
Sanket
Das,
respond.
this is the reason why I read a long list, basically making a point that everybody is hate speech. Everybody is hate speech.
Arrest him.
Arrest them. Take action.
Yes.
And that is exactly
Yes.
what needs to be done. Because frankly,
So
if
then-
governments don't take
Then
action,
why you are naming
it
one
appears
person?
as if there is
Then why
something
you are
wrong.
naming one person?
You want this to continue.
No, no, no.
Ashutosh,
No, no,
political
no,
analyst
no.
Ashutosh, please.
No, you are-
Let me
why
move
you
on,
are
please.
Sanket,
naming
We,
one
otherwise we are
person?
stuck.
Arrest
Ashutosh. Yeah.
No, you are
Sanket.
naming one person only.
Sanket,
Ashutosh, please. Yes.
after hearing for such a long time,
Yeah.
I am very convinced
Yeah.
government and their spokesperson will not take any action, because if they start taking actions, they will start losing elections also. So they will do all kinds of things. In this country, if you make a statement against a particular community, immediately you will be arrested and I will be arrested. There is no confusion about what is the definition. Everybody knows what is hate speech. What we are talking about, we do not know what is hate speech. Who are talking about this? But the idea is very simple. Oasis should be arrested, Zubair should be arrested, Nupur and Paresh Sharma should not be arrested, because they belong to a particular community, they belong to the government and the organizations. So those who are talking about there is no definition of hate speech, they are basically trying to sidetrack, they are basically trying to confuse. Everybody knows what is hate speech. It's very clear. And today's Supreme Court apparently has condemned Paresh Sharma's statement. If you read what the Supreme Court has done, he's condemned. He said it's a very disturbing statement. So don't tell us, don't teach us. We are not kids here. We know what we are talking about.
Correct.
If you have guts, BJP should come out openly against Baba Saheb Ambedkar and said Baba Saheb Ambedkar was indulging into hate speech. Have you got the guts? Can you do that?
No, I
If you
don't think
can do
any
it,
political
please come
party
out
can say
openly.
that. I don't think any political party can say
you
that.
can't come out openly because you also need votes of the Dalits.
That's
So you will not do
an
it.
open challenge. Very quickly, coming back to Professor Das. Professor Das, will the BJP, according to Mr. Ashutosh, have the courage to criticize Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar?
Why?
For a
why
comment
BJP
that
is
you are
going to
attributing
criticize
to him.
the Baba Saheb Ambedkar by the anyway? Why?
Because your friend has talked about Baba Saheb
Why?
Ambedkar.
Because
Nambiar
P.T. Nambiar just
has
spoke
talked
about
Baba
Bhimrao
Saheb Ambedkar. I
Ambedkar.
did not talk about Baba Saheb
No.
And his
Nambiar
pledge.
was no.
The pledge that
Nambiar
he
was
took
trying
to not believe in
Nambiar
Hindu
was
gods.
trying to distinguish what is hate speech and what is not hate speech.
And Sardar
That was trying to
Patel in his letter to
distinguish.
Golwalkar has also defined what is hate
Ashutosh
speech.
shouting.
And in that letter, he
shouting
said
doesn't
that
shouting doesn't solve anything. No.
Hatred
Ashutosh,
which was created by
Ashutosh,
RSS
I would be
killed
able to-
Gandhi.
No.
Position to give an
Ashok
answer.
Sardar
Okay,
Patel has
gentlemen,
written in the
please,
letter
happy
that
Diwali,
the
please.
evidence.
I thought
You
you
need
have
evidence.
you
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 need
I
evidence.
thought you were a knowledge
Yashwardhan
person,
Azad,
but
the
you
last
are not.
one. I'm running out of
This
time.
letter was
We
written
also
by
have
Sardar
Justice S.N.
Patel
Bhimrao
to
waiting.
Golwalkar,
No.
saying
Very
RSS
limited
party
time left.
did-
Mr. Azad,
quick
closing comment, Mr. Azad, please.
You have a very
when it comes
shallow
to
knowledge,
Hindus, you are
Ashutosh.
very good.
I'm
When it comes
sorry.
to the Muslims,
I have
you
Justice
are-
Dhingra waiting,
you
please.
have
A very
very
limited
shallow
time.
knowledge.
Mr. Azad.
No.
Mr. Azad, please.
RSS
Only
person
Mr.
did not
Azad.
like Gandhi.
I totally agree with Ashutosh.
If you do not know
Yeah.
I totally agree with Ashutosh when he says that a hate speech is crystal clear and can be understood by everyone. We need not use law and codified approaches to make out what is a hate speech or not. Yes, some hate speeches come under grey area. That can be, of course, seen in by the lawyers, etc. But today the time is these debates are only generating heat but no action. So I would again request the Supreme Court that under Article 142, to ensure that justice is done, to have some kind of a monitoring committee, have eminent lawyers like Colin Gonsalves and others to see that in the next 3 months the decision is implemented.
something moves.
Otherwise, there is no point giving
can
such
keep on
decisions
debating.
without backup action.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mr. Azad, and thank you very much to all of you all for joining us. Let's hope something happens, because this appears to be a very good thing to happen this Diwali season. But will things necessarily change? That's the question that is being put forward. Justice S.N. Dhingra, retired judge of the Delhi High Court. Thank you very much, Justice Dhingra. You must have heard this very animated debate. Want to know your views of what the Supreme Court has said. Where do you stand?
You see, what Supreme Court has said was for this debate only. This kind of debates will go on such kinds of judgments and orders passed by Supreme Court. See, the Supreme Court doesn't take into consideration the ground realities. How can any government file so many FIRs? See, there needs to be a complainant who goes to the police station and tells that this speech is hate speech. Now, this complainant has to be a person who considers that this speech was actually hate speech. A police constable, a government secretary, or any officer of the government, or a minister, or a chief minister, or even High Court judge or Supreme Court judge would not go to the police station and say that this is hate speech. And hate speech is a very subjective thing. It is not an objective thing. If one judge may consider that it is hate speech, other may say it is freedom of speech. There have been many instances where judges have said, no, it is freedom of speech. There is nothing wrong in this freedom of speech. It is not hate speech. Now, where does this order stand? Will the Supreme Court stand in witness box today? Even the judges which have stated these are very disturbing speeches. And if the state government or any government records FIR on the ground that Supreme Court has stated that these are disturbing speeches, and the judge before whom this case goes for trial, he says, okay, let the Supreme Court judge come and give evidence how this hate speech is, this speech is a hate speech or disturbing speech, what disturbance was caused to him, why he did not go into facts that these were factual speech or these were reactions to the speech made earlier, and the person had made this speech in anger, he had no intention to disturb the peace. Where does this stand? So hate speech is a very wide area and very vague area. There must be a law to say what is hate speech, what speech will be considered hate speech. See, it is totally subjective. Will a sermon given by a anchor or a professor or a retired police officer or a retired judge, that you see these kind of speeches are hate speeches, please stop them. See, this is not how the law moves. You have to go to the court, you have to prove that what harm was caused by this speech, who were the person affected, and those persons who were affected, they will have to come and say that yes, I was personally affected by this speech.
No, Justice Dhingra, let me ask you this question. For instance, this BJP MP in question, where he never says Muslims, but he says एक समुदाय से सामान मत कीजिए, उनका पूरा टोटल बॉयकॉट कर दीजिए, कोई सामान मत खरीदिए, पैसा मिलना बंद हो जाएगा, तो ये समुदाय अपने आप लाइन पर आ जाएगा. So technically he has not named anyone, but
he has not, okay.
This appears to be hate speech.
No, please tell me. If this appears to you hate speech, please tell me. If telling the community that this community is becoming oppressive, this community is hurting you time and again, this community is violating your, religious sentiments, please don't buy things from this community. How it is hate speech? You tell me.
No, I mean, the way I look at this, Justice Dhingra, how is this not hate speech?
This is what I'm
Here
saying.
is a person, Justice Dhingra, one moment. Here is an MP who's openly saying that go for a total boycott of a community.
Understand.
Let's just say this is not about Muslims. It is against some other community.
The way you look upon a speech becomes hate speech. The way I look upon a speech doesn't look upon a hate speech.
But how?
So
Let's give our logic. Justice Dhingra, just for the sake of argument.
Decided by a judge. By
Justice
some
Dhingra,
judge.
You asked me a question,
And
I'm
if
giving you
the
logic.
the judges have their own opinions. Some are pro-government, some are anti-government. Some judges, some benches in the Supreme Court keep passing order against the government, where keep making remarks against the particular. You see, it is because of their political inclination. That do you think judges are above politics? They are not above politics.
Well, I mean, you can say this, I can't. As a retired justice, you can say that, I can't.
But this is the reason. You can't say because you are afraid of contempt.
No, and rightfully so. I mean, how do I criticize a judge when I don't know what the motive is?
Yes. Why you criticize others when you do not know?
No, of course I know, because this speech is, we're talking about Pravesh Verma. We know the intention.
Of course, you should know.
Justice Dhingra, we know the intention.
Different inclinations.
The intention is to cause economic harm to a community.
They are appointed because of their inclinations by XYZ.
Justice Dhingra, I am only talking about looking at hate speech on a case-by-case basis. Are you saying that a law needs to exist?
To
define it clearly.
It's not the job of Supreme Court to tell that you go and register FIRs against everybody who makes a speech. Tomorrow the FIR may be registered against you because you are appearing on TV as anchor and saying, look, this and this man has made hate speech. And you see, you by your saying this hate speech, you are also spreading hate against the other community.
No, but then see, there's a difference between calling someone out and then openly asking for an economic boycott. I mean, there are a number of examples. Yati Narsinganand, Suresh Chavan, Tawqir Raza, Shaukat Ali. I mean,
you have read them many times. I have also read them. You see, they are hate speeches in your opinion, in opinion of XYZ, in opinion of some judges, in opinion of politicians, in opinion of anchors.
So what do you suggest, Justice Dhingra, as we wrap up this program, do you suggest a better definition of hate speech to take this forward?
You see, a hate speech cannot be confined into, a strict wording of ABC. There is section 153 in IPC, anything which spreads hatred and that. So the thing that spreads hatred, a book or a writing or a speech, is a hate speech. Now,
what do we do, Justice Dhingra? It almost appears as if there is no end to this.
There will not be any end because this is going on since 1947.
Oh God. Okay.
And if you search the history, you see the people who have written books condemning a government. Not only books have been banned, but they have been booked under section 153A and sent to jail.
Okay. All right.
And
Justice Dhingra, I have run out of time. I would have loved to listen to your counter view, but I have completely run out of time. Thank you so much. We've come to the end of this discussion. As we head into this Diwali weekend, I would like to wish everyone a very happy Deepavali, and let's hope that something happens so that we celebrate the next Deepavali. I know this is wishful thinking, which is slightly hate-free or less hate. Good night and good day.